Do you remember your first ever job interview? Nervously picking out the perfect outfit, trying to figure out what you were supposed to say your greatest weakness was, leaving extra early to avoid getting stuck in traffic, and then trying to come off as simultaneously professional and relatable in the interview. This process is nerve-wracking for even the most prepared and qualified applicant. But for an autistic person, it can be downright impossible. The research is pretty sparse, but scientists' best estimate is that approximately 80% of autistic adults are or underemployed. 80%. Underemployment is like when someone with a college degree is in a minimum wage job. I am autistic. I've been through the hiring process firsthand, and I'm going to convince you all in the next 10 minutes that this dilemma deserves your attention. To do that, we first need to talk about what autism is. To receive a diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder, a person must meet two criteria: persistent deficits in social interaction and social communication, and restricted or repetitive patterns of behavior, interest, or activities. People on the spectrum are also commonly hyper or hyposensitive to stimuli and have some difficulty with executive functioning. We're also more likely to have certain talents, like an exceptional memory, pattern recognition, visuospatial acuity, and the ability to hyper-focus. Because of this combination of challenges and gifts, lots of people with autism consider their differences to be a normal part of human diversity. We call this concept neurodiversity. Furthermore, when we say autism is a spectrum, we're referring to the way that it impacts each person who has autism. It's not true that everyone is on the spectrum, because it's not a line that reaches from developmentally normal to intense autism. Instead, think of the spectrum more like this. In each of these areas, a person who has autism has a different level of challenge or ability. Thus, autism presents in many, many different ways. That's why we use the term spectrum. People with autism can be any race, ethnicity, or gender. Some have intellectual disabilities, while others have IQs far above average. We exist in all classes of society and in all nations on the globe. The latest CDC data estimates that 1 in every 59 people is on the spectrum, which adds up to approximately 127,672,000 people on Earth. Those 127,672,000 people, give or take a few, are not just children. The majority are adults, which is why it's critical that we ensure there's equal access to employment. Holding a job provides benefits which are essential to human well-being: financial security, social connections, a place in society. When any one of us lacks these benefits, the result can be unpleasant. But when an autistic person who already struggles to find their place in our neurotypical world also lacks meaningful employment, the result is often disastrous. And that brings us back to the statistic we just learned. 80% of autistic adults are or underemployed, which means that 20% are appropriately employed. But a study by the National Autistic Society found that 77% of adults with autism want to be working. So what's happening? Why are all of these people unemployed or in minimum wage jobs despite having higher qualifications? The truth is that many of the factors we use to evaluate job candidates have nothing to do with their ability to do the job. Instead, employers are using adherence to social norms as a measure of general competence. They are subconsciously making judgments based on how easy an applicant is to talk to or how comfortable they feel around that person. But autistic people, no matter how brilliant or qualified, will never fit society's idea of social normality. We make minimal eye contact, and we're really, really bad at small talk. We have trouble interpreting other people's body language, and our own may unintentionally convey that we're disinterested. We also have difficulty interpreting the implied meaning of people's tone and language, and we ourselves have a tendency to be too straightforward, which we often learn the hard way can be considered offensive. At best, we're thought of as quirky, and at worst, mean or crazy. As an autistic person who has been through the hiring process firsthand, I can attest to these challenges. I've had the most success securing employment in environments where I don't have to worry about my body language or eye contact. It was through online applications and phone interviews that I secured a spot in the White House internship program 2 summers in a row. I spent the first summer using my ability to think visually as an intern in the White House photo office, and the second summer using my ability to systemize as the communications intern in the Office of the Vice President. I've also had success in scenarios where I have a longer amount of time to demonstrate my capability. My current job here at Vanderbilt started as an internship. Over the course of several months, I showed how I was able to contribute. By the end of that time, my boss was quite confident in my ability and totally unconcerned with my social prowess. Unfortunately, my experiences are the exception. You see, I've spent my whole life studying how other people interact and trying to mimic what I see. This is called social camouflage, and it can make some people with autism, particularly women, harder to spot. But some folks on the spectrum can't create such intricate social camouflage, and others simply choose not to drain themselves daily by dedicating so much energy to conforming. And trust me when I say it's exhausting. So, the heavy reliance of our employment systems on social cues screens us out. And when one of us does secure a job, failing to meet purely social standards can lead to career stagnation, demotion, or even firing. This discrimination is largely unintentional, but it results in the loss of highly talented and productive employees. By failing to take advantage of this enormous pool of human capital, we are losing money, efficiency, and the potential for further progress. Okay, take a deep breath. I know this has seemed pretty discouraging so far, but there is good news. Global awareness of and attitudes about autism are changing, and researchers have begun to address how we can provide autistic adults with equal access to employment. In fact, a group of scholars right here at Vanderbilt University has developed a new center to address this very issue. It's called the Frist Center for Autism and Innovation, and its goal is to advance workforce innovation through the employment of autistic adults, with a focus on their strengths and abilities. The center is pioneering what we're calling the Nashville model. This model goes through skills testing, job placement, assistive technologies and accommodations, and appropriate management methods. At each of these steps, we're doing research to determine best practices. The Frist Center is also working with real businesses. One of those businesses is Ernst & Young, the global professional services firm. EY has opened 5 neurodiversity centers of excellence across the United States, including one right here in Nashville. And EY makes clear that employing autistic adults is not a charity project. In 2018, they reported that their autistic employees had improved the firm's efficiency and innovation, as well as bolstering its internal sense of purpose and pride. And there is no reason that this success has to be limited to EY. You can follow in their footsteps. You don't have to open a special neurodiversity center or have an autism hiring program. All you have to do is actively consider the challenges that people with autism face as they enter the workforce and adapt your processes to account for those challenges. For example, allow applicants to interview over the phone or provide them with the questions in advance. Make sure that you're assessing only skills needed to do the job and not using social skills as a stand-in for other types of competence. Create an environment where the disclosure of neurodiversity is welcomed, where communication is clear and straightforward, and where reasonable accommodations are readily available. And since you may never know if an applicant or employee is on the autism spectrum, it's essential that you provide these same changes to everyone. You'll likely find, as many businesses have, that the same adaptations which allow employees with autism to thrive also improve the productivity and satisfaction of neurotypical ones. And if you don't run a business or work as a hiring manager, hear this. You still have a role in bringing change. You're interacting with people on the spectrum all the time. It might be the person who makes your coffee, or a coworker. Perhaps it's a sibling or a friend. Maybe you're realizing it might be you. The point is, we're everywhere. And you can give autistic people the respect they deserve by recognizing their strengths, supporting them in areas of challenge, celebrating what makes them unique, and simply giving them space to be themselves. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that the day is coming when our society will recognize and support all people with autism. The day is coming when businesses in particular will understand and value what they contribute as autistic people. That day is not today. But the decisions you make from today on will determine how quickly that day dawns. Thank you.